My daughter has just graduated from college, and is doing really well for herself. She has even moved into her own apartment, completely paid for by her own money, and I am very proud of her. At the end of last month, I called her to congratulate her on the 1-month anniversary of her apartment. However, her voice was really somber and she asked if we could talk in person. I told her sure, just come on over. But she insisted that I need to be the one who comes over to her house. The way she said it made me nervous, like she was in trouble or something. But I had no way of going over to her since I didn't know how to drive, and I didn't have a car either. She just told me to get ready in 20 minutes and wait, because she was picking me up. The whole conversation made me so skeptical that I got ready in 5 minutes. I wanted to inform my husband about what was happening, and that I was going out. But my daughter forbade me from doing so. She didn't say anything during the car ride. And as soon as we entered her apartment, she hugged me tighter than she had ever before. I calmed her down, thinking she had some love troubles going on. I smiled inside because my little girl had grown up now. However, she poured water on my dreams by saying, "I can finally help you get away from him." I asked her what she meant. She explained that she had waited until she had settled into her own place before telling me this, so I wouldn't be hopeless and would have some place to go. Mom, listen to me very carefully. As a kid, I also thought that Dad's behavior was normal. But going out into the real world and hanging out with my friends made me realize that he is very toxic and controlling towards you. Do you remember when me and my brother were sitting in the living room watching TV, and Dad just burst in screaming? You had forgotten to put enough salt in his food, and just for that, he poured hot water all over you and made you cook everything again. Incidents like that weren't rare at all, and you know it. That is absolutely not normal, Mom. You have wasted enough years of your life rotting in that place, with no friends. But now, your children are independent, so you don't need to worry anymore. Just think about yourself and divorce him. My door will always be open to you, and I will always be there to support you. Halfway through, she had started bawling her eyes out like a baby. And her words definitely got through to me. Thanks to my husband, I had lost all contact with my friends, and drifted apart so much that I hadn't talked to them in years. There were times when I wanted to leave the house and maybe just go on a walk to clear my head. But I didn't, out of fear for his temper and what he would end up doing. I avoided other men like a plague, even in the grocery store, because of the things he would say. There was a time in my life when our family was financially struggling. I wanted to use my dusty college degree and pursue my passion of working again, but my husband refused it outright. In front of him, I was tame and silent. I never raised my voice at anything he did. Even when he would come home in the middle of the night, drunk as hell, and start shouting slurs, it would wake our kids up, but I still didn't say anything. I hated that life. Eventually, I also started crying as I remembered all these moments. And then I cried even harder when I realized that my daughter had noticed all of this, and worked hard for my sake. She wanted to become a supporting rock for me, and allow me to break my restraints. After a few hours of crying and bonding together, we laughed about what we just did, and I decided to call my husband. He should be home by now. I was going to call him because I finally had mustered up the courage to ask for a divorce. But of course, the first thing he said was yelling at me and asking where the F I was at. Only this time, I yelled back. I told him to lower his voice and listen to what I had to say. I didn't highlight any of the points, but said enough so that my demand for a divorce wouldn't be unreasonable. He was silent for a few seconds, and then, in the loudest voice ever, demanded to know my location. He claimed that someone was spitting venom in my ears, and he was going to end them. I flinched back from the phone in recoil and my body tensed up. For a moment, I considered that this was all a mistake. But then I looked at my daughter's face. She was looking back so confidently that I thought she could actually fight off her dad at that moment. My heart filled with courage once more, and I told him that I wasn't going to tell him my location, or come back to the house. I was divorcing him, and that was final. He just cut the call at that point. I sighed and told my daughter about what he said. We just started discussing some of our next steps, like hiring a lawyer, since it was almost time to go to sleep. But I had forgotten the extent of his craziness, and the fact that he knew my daughter's address. A few minutes later, we heard a car pull up, and someone banging on our door.